Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Tulsa King. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I do love that this episode is just kind of like a somewhat mundane thing. Like I said, based on the last episode, I do get the feeling like this is just going to be one of those fun, like, mafioso crime dramas. It's going to have its serious moments, but for now, it's kind of lighthearted and kind of fun. But it's like, yeah, it's a man kind of stuck in his time. It's like, yeah, how much the world has changed like in the 25 years he was locked up. We got that in episode 1, but even more so in this one. And I love, like, I mean, it's mundane stuff of like, right, he needs a credit card just so he can, like, check the public records to try and find his daughter, Christina, which I would have never known that was short for Tina. I mean, I don't know. I guess, like, when I hear Christina, I think, like, maybe Chrissy or something like that, but I never think Tina. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's like Victoria being Tori, so, like, I don't know why it never correlated to me being like, oh, yeah, Tina would be short for, Christina. I don't know why that never crossed my mind, because it's just I'm an idiot. But it's like, right, he doesn't have a credit card to put in the information. So it's like, all right, so I need to get a credit card, but he can't, well, he's trying to get a debit card at first, but it's like, well, you can't get a debit card without a proper license because his expired when he went into jail in 98. So he's got to go to the, to the DMV. And I love that he's got to take the driving test again. And the guy next to him is covering up his answers. And then he just grabs the guy's desk, turn it towards him, almost like, what are you doing? Show me what answers you got. I'm like, I love that. I'm like, it feels so weird to cheat on a test. It's also interesting, too, that it's written. I mean, at least in my experience, like, they've always been like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking about, like, the learner's permit side of things and not the, that's all. I've never taken the actual driving test, so maybe that is written, but, like, at least the permit side of things was, like, was digital, so I don't know, maybe that just varies from state to state and stuff like that. I just thought that was interesting. Maybe he just personally preferred like a written test. I guess, well, I forgot, I think you can choose, can't you, whether you want it on a computer or written? Maybe you can, I don't remember. Either way, because I don't drive, so it hasn't really come up where I need it to, like, worry about that, but tangents and all that aside. But I love that he's cheating on that, and it's like, cool. Oh, slides the DMV lady some. She's like, oh wow, your driving test went from 5 weeks ago to, oh, we found an opening earlier next week. And he's like, wait, is this a learner permit? It's like, is that enough? And she's like, yeah, it's pretty much as good as. He's like, okay, cool. I don't care, because for him it's like, I've been driving since I've been 13, so I really need to take the test again. It's like, yeah, because I think the longest you can do is like 3 years before they make you take the test again. I think that's it. Like, if you go over 3 years in between the tests, in between like the expiration date of your license, and then I think it's 3 years. It's like before you have to take the test again. But maybe I'm mistaken. I mean, that was just kind of my very limited experience. Either way, putting that aside, I thought it was so interesting that it's like, yeah, he goes to the bank, gets his debit card, and I love he squeezes the guy, and the guy was just trying to help him out and stuff like that. He's also like, yeah, you guys, and oh, would you like an extra one for your colleague? He's like, oh, nowadays you can't tell. Later on, Tyson's like, wait, was he implying, like, I think he was, and someone's like, well, it's like, hey, you guys could easily be one, but I think for Tyson, it's like, I didn't know we kind of gave all that vibe like we were a couple. Which we also got introduced to Tyson's dad. Wasn't he in Mayor King? Yeah, that actor, he was in Mayor Kingstown. Like, that actor, you've seen him in so many things. The one thing I like immediately comes to my mind, I think of him as Pike from the 100. But wasn't he, I want to say he was in Mayor Kingstown, wasn't he? Maybe I'm just tripping. I feel like he was. It's been a while since I saw Mayor Kingstown. Either way, he's got his own business and stuff like that, but he wants Tyson, because he's like, right, you're rolling around with this gangster. I guess Tyson must have told him, like, the type of guy he's rolling with. And he's like, yeah, this guy's been in jail and stuff like that. Because, I mean, even Tyson doesn't know the full details of why he went to jail. I mean, we don't know all that he's done, but obviously he took the rap for a murder he didn't do. And obviously he killed someone in prison, but that was in self-defense. So it's like, yeah, I think it's the thing of, like, he can get violent, but he doesn't get deadly violent unless the situation calls for it. But it almost sounds like, I mean, well, I also got to think that's what he was charged with. So it's like, yeah, he's a capo, so he's probably capped some people in his time. It's just like those bodies never stuck. The only reason why this one did is because he took the rap for somebody. So Like he took it for Chicky's father, I think wasn't that who he took the rap for? Or was it Chicky? I think it might have been his father that he took the rap for. Either way. So I had to correct myself because I was about to say, it's like, right, he's a man that can turn to violence, but he could probably turn to deadly violence if the need be, but he just hasn't had an opportunity or need to. So that is kind of interesting. Which, speaking of the family side of things, I love that he has to pay $100,000 as kind of like a peace offering to was it Vince? Because Vince is upset and basically wants something done. It's like, right, we can't, like, it's like, right, something needs to be done because that guy can't just like punch me in the face. His like jaw is wired shut and stuff. It's like, but for me, I'm like, the age old thing of talk shit, get hit. Like, to me, you just got to accept the consequences. He broke your jaw. He laid you out in your ass. You shouldn't have been running your mouth. You should always expect you run your mouth, there's going to be something happen. It's like, you also forgot who you were talking to. Like, it shows some damn respect. And he's like, even he's later on telling Chicky, like, hey, you should be glad that I shut that dude's mouth. But I was like, all right, you're going to have to pay him 100. He's like, all right, I'm going to send it through. But he's also like, if it's something ticking, don't open the box or something like that. So it's like, I love this. Like, yeah, you have to legitimately pay him $100,000 because you hurt his feelings. Even Chicky was like, yeah, he's embarrassed. It's like, yeah. Especially because for him, it's probably a thing of this is like, because he views Dwight as like a relic. And it's like, yeah, you got laid out by a quote unquote relic. It's like, so, don't mean shit. Like, once again, he hit you with that solid hook and your ass was down. So, but once again, he's just embarrassed. So it's like, I wonder, will Dwight actually pay the money or will he not? He's like, I don't want no beef. The guy started beef. He's walking around really upset and pissed. Because Chicky had talked to his dad, or he at least said he was going to talk to his dad about it. So I guess like this is the middle ground they found. But it's like, man, I don't understand. Being Dwight who he is, what we know of him so far, I'm like, he really won't pay that $100,000, will he? He'd just be like, oh, you were serious about that? I know, maybe he'd be like, no, I was serious when I told you I'm going to send a bomb through the fucking mail just to blow him up. I want that to be perfectly clear during this recording. I'm not saying I'm doing that. I'm saying that that's what this character in his TV show said, because I feel like I have to expressly say that because I don't want that taken in the YouTube algorithm of like, oh, you said this. I don't know if they're going to latch onto those words. So I have to be very, very careful about that. I just wanted to kind of make that perfectly clear. Either way, so we'll see what kind of happens on that front. But I got super distracted. The point I was making was like, obviously Tyson's dad wants him to go to college and stuff. But it's like, yeah, I'm going to learn from this guy. And he's a businessman. I can learn a lot from him. So, well, because I guess his dad doesn't own his own business. I guess he just works for someone. But, he saw later on that Tyson came home super late. So I'm assuming at some point in time, Dwight and him are going to have a talk because like from father to father type of situation. And it's like, right. I think it's like all he's got Tyson doing, it's like being his driver. It's nothing dangerous, but I mean, him being him, he's going to end up attracting the wrong kind of attention. He kind of already has like last episode and he's going to get it this episode. I'm sure he got it this episode. I'm sure it's going to continue. We'll get to that in a second, but I can tell like, yeah, like driving for him can be dangerous in the long run. So, but I think it is going to be an important conversation from father to father to have because I think for him, it's probably just that thing of like, right, you probably raise your son right. You're hoping that he, you do all the things that you can to make sure he doesn't end up in the streets. And technically, he's not mixed up in the streets, but this is on some same level gangster shit that is equivalent to being out in the streets, So I think that probably like, worries him because it's like, yeah, you probably do everything you can. You probably grew up with those type of people who ran that type of lifestyle, and most of them are gone. So you're like, yeah, I don't want that for my son. So we'll see how things kind of play out on that front. But I love the whole situation with once again, he's showing up and being like, yo, Bodie, why are you like, hi, it's 11 a.m. Hey, Fred. He's like, oh, hey. I'm like, every time he talks to Fred, and it's just kind of like the most nonchalant thing ever. I'm like, I love it. It's like, yeah, you knocked him out, but it's, hey, we're moved past it. He's the boss now, so let's go. So it's like, hey, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to renegotiate your situation with your supplier, Jimmy. They go see Jimmy, as well as Jimmy's cousin, Badface, which he later on calls Fuckface. But I even loved, and I'm wondering if there's going to be something there where he was like, honestly, like, no, your cousin's good. He's like, I wish I had 10 more of like him, like rolling around. So obviously, like, we're setting the groundwork to like his foundation because obviously like he dapped up with like Mitch at the bar and stuff. So I'm assuming that's going to be especially someone for like a criminal record and stuff like that. That might be someone he could like that comes into play later on. And obviously everything with Jimmy and his cousin, that could be something. Because he's like, hey, I'm going to strike you a deal. You got this amount of acres and stuff. And I love that he's eating a thing. He's like, oh, this is so good. He's like, I should probably warn you. That is like a lot of THC in that. He's like, and it's like, looks at Bodhi. Bodhi's like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like, it's a weed farm. I expect you know that everything here is going to have something weed related in it. He's like, and I was wondering why I was feeling so good. And I love that moment where, like, I think for a moment, like, Bodhi was able to just kind of relax. And I love the back and forth. He's like, oh, here you go. And he's like, boop. And kept taking it from him. I'm like, what are you, a fucking child? I love it. He's like, no, seriously. He's like, if I reach for it, you're going to take it away again. He's like, no, I'm not. Boop. I'm like, he's such an asshole. I love it. But he's blitzed out of it. Like, he's high. He's like, oh, this is some good shit. And I love it. Once again, he's a man out of, stuck in time being like, yeah, like this, pronoun stuff. He's just like, but it kind of led to some very prolific thought, obviously. I think when the time comes, he's going to get with the program and just like, yeah, that's just the way it is. But once again, it's like, it's also representative of, like, I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm just saying, like, yeah, it's representative of, like, he's very old school in his approach. He's an older person, That doesn't mean, like, older people in real life don't adjust, but he is someone who's been locked away from the world, hasn't been active with the world's changes in the past 25 years, versus someone who's actually been out and about, who is the same age, who's changed with the time. Yes, there are some people stuck in their ways, but I could see Dwight, at least I give him the benefit of the doubt. I say, yeah, he's someone that's not going to be 100% stuck in the past, but still. I did love it. Like I said, it led to something prolific where he was like, yeah, but truth be told, he's like, as in, like, I know who I am. But then he was like, well, truth be told, he was like, who really does know who they are anymore and stuff like that. So he kind of backtracked a little bit. I was like, oh, that kind of led to like a very prolific conversation. Because he's like, yeah, this particular guy, made a movie or something or documentary or whatever about he wrote a book about my neighborhood. Oh, no, or was it a play? I don't remember what. He's like, he wrote something about this play, but he's like, to me, the crowning jewel triumph that he had was he got to, like, have sex with Marilyn Monroe and, like, wake up next to her. I'm like, yeah. When you think of Marilyn Monroe as kind of, like, one of history's, like, classic beauties, like, it's understandable, like, that's actually, I love that, but that is, I guess, a claim to fame in his eyes. Of like, that's probably the most important thing that dude ever did in his life. It's like, cool, you wrote about a neighborhood, I don't care. You sat with Marilyn Monroe. That's pretty legit, bro. Like, he's kind of got that mentality about it, so. But like I said, I do like that because he comes off a little scary and stuff like that, but in that moment, he's able to just kind of chill, relax, talking to Tyson and to Bodhi, which we find out Bodhi's like real last name is Geigerman, which I was like, that's a pretty dope last name. I've never heard the last name Geigerman before. He's like, he's like, was there some, like, your name's Geiger? He's like, what, is that got some anti? He's like, no, man. He's like, I love the Jews. I love Jewish food. Potent conversation to have, interestingly enough, just because it's like, yeah, I mean, they weren't planning on it, but it is like, yeah, anti-Semitism is like, obviously it's been on the rise for a while, so it's just like, especially with everything that's been happening recently, it's just like, oh god, hit a fever pitch. I mean, probably like, no, it's probably hit a fever pitch before now, but still, it's just like, just the timing's just interesting. It's like, I mean, I think that's always going to be a very topical conversation, anti-Semitism, sadly, it's always going to be there, just like any form of racism. It's like, that's not going away anytime soon, sadly, so. But really quickly, at the end of the episode, he does finally, like, he talks to his daughter, and it turns out, obviously, he's got some grandbabies he wasn't aware of. Because he had talked about it with Stacy earlier, which we'll circle back to that he hasn't talked to Tina in 18 years, along with the rest of his relatives, because Tina was a little girl at the time, and it's like, hey, I don't want it's like, I don't want her to have to see me like that. It breaks her heart all the time, so I pushed her away for her sake. But even later on, he admits, like, no, I pushed her away because it was too hard for me being locked up, only seeing my daughter from the other side, hearing from her on the other side, not being able to be with her and growing up. So I guess based on what we had in the conversation, I guess Tina grew to resent him because it's like, right, you pushed me away. And so it's like, right, if you hadn't done what you did, if you didn't have that lifestyle, maybe I could have. It's just resentful of like you not being in my life, and now you want to be in my life. You pushed me away, And it's like, right, he tried to justify it to himself, saying it was for her sake, but it's like, no, it's for his sake, because knowing like, hey, I'm going to be locked up all this time, it was easier on me to push you away, and now she won't kind of respond to it. She's like, here, you get to hear my voice, and left. Like, now it's like, right, Tina's married, she's got kids, once again, he's got grandbabies he hasn't had a chance to meet yet. So hopefully things work out on that front, you know. And like I said, that's why I think like him and Tyson's dad are going to have a really interesting conversation. But we'll see what happens. But also, like, circling back to the Stacy situation of it all, Stacy obviously showed up, and he was like, "Hey, happy to see you." And she's like, "Yeah, I should have probably told you last time I'm an ATF agent." And that moment, he was almost like "Are you like?" He had to look like, "Are you fucking with me?" And then it's like, "Are you fucking with me?" Like, because it's like it went from like "Oh, you're joking" to like "Oh, well, fuck me, my love." And he's like, "Right." So she's like, "Right, why are you in Tulsa?" He's like, "Yeah, I have no family left. My daughter wants nothing to do with me. I pushed her away. Like, I don't know about the rest of my relatives either." So it's like, yeah, came to Tulsa for a fresh new start. So she's like, "Yeah, any trouble you're in, I won't be able to help you." He's like, "Wouldn't expect you to." So, which seems like Stacy's kind of going through her own thing, like a divorce. It seems like it's been like a year or so, but it does seem like there's more to it. Her ex is already dating. She's already slept with someone. She made sure to tell her agent friend, like, "Yeah, the guy bought me a drink, nothing else." I mean, for one, she's embarrassed at one, she slept with a criminal. Two, sleeping with the criminal would have been bearable if he wasn't older than her, as she's saying, like, "Oh, extremely old." It's like, "Are you planning on seeing him again?" She's like, "No." And he's like, and her therapist is like, "Good." It's like, well, she did, but that was more on the official yet unofficial capacity. She was there as an FCA agent to be like, "Yo, this is what's going down, so we probably should avoid each other like the plague." But it's like, you know, we'll see what happens. There's no way you're going to not be around each other's orbits, because especially with that guy, what's his name, Manny. He believes Dwight's in town to pop him. I'm like, I wonder, did they not tell whoever this guy, Manny, whoever he is and whatever he is, to Dwight? They must have some beef or something, because like Dwight, they never mentioned that last episode that this guy would be in Tulsa. Like, maybe even they don't know, but he's like, "Oh, I happen to be in Tulsa, and that guy got out of prison recently, and he just happens to be in Tulsa." Like, maybe that's another reason why Dwight's here, or maybe, like I said, maybe the family doesn't know. Dwight doesn't seem to know, because he's not even worried about the guy. I was like, I'm in my head, I'm like, I hope Home Dude doesn't try to roll up on Dwight thinking he needs to kill Dwight before Dwight kills him. Maybe if Dwight knew he was in Tulsa, he'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to kill that motherfucker." But he doesn't know, and you're going to probably take your shot, miss, and then you're going to get your ass killed because of it. We'll see if that's how everything ultimately ends up shaking out. We'll have to wait and see, but that's definitely going to be interesting, so... Especially because he knows where Dwight's staying. Like, Dwight doesn't know where he's at, but he knows where Dwight's at. He knows he's at the Mayo and stuff like that, so... Obviously, we're kind of slow rolling it for now, but I am excited to see where things kind of end up taking us. Like I said, this feels like it's going to be kind of like a crime drama, like it's once again weird to say like lighthearted, because obviously you do have like your more lighthearted crime dramas, like your Castles or your Psychs, which are more like comedy crime dramas and stuff. Even like, because I'm about to say even in the Dark had that element to it, but even it had its like really dark moments. I don't know if the show is going to get like that, but like some of the levity we've gotten so far, I appreciate it. Kind of just being kind of a fun show so far, but probably will get to the to everything when things kind of progress. So I should also talk about, I love the antithesis of this. Is that a real thing in Tulsa, the center of the universe? I was like, that's so weird. Like, how the fuck does that work? That's so interesting. It's like, yeah, like when you're there, no one can hear you. And I love he's like trying to get that lady some money, and she's like, "I don't want none of your scuzzy money," and just about walked away. But yeah. But yeah, he talks to God because he's like, yeah, it's not just his family. I guess he used to be a religious man, but it's like, yo, we haven't spoken in a long time. And he's kind of just apologetic. And I guess it's like, he's hoping maybe if he can get right with God, maybe God can fix everything so that he can be right with his daughter again and be in her life and kind of make up for the mistakes that he made. Because at the end of the day, it's like, right, I went away for 25 years for what? What was waiting for me on the other side? Being told to move the hell away from New York and be here at Tulsa, away from everything I've ever known. Yeah, it wasn't worth it in the end, because he was hoping like to be rewarded, compensated. It's like, yeah, this is your compensation, which once again to him, it's like, no, this isn't compensation. This is a prison. This is banishment. I'm being sent somewhere else. He's like, fine, I'm going to make the most of it. So we'll have to wait and see how all this continues to play out in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.